Hmm. Good afternoon. Um, or I should really just say afternoon because it is an afternoon. And for some, it's good, and for some, it's not. You know, I've been, and before I move forward, y'all know who I am, Dr. Maisha, your resident um, NLP coach, business coach, NLP trainer. I have been, and I've been talking a lot about the unconscious mind and how the unconscious mind works over the last month, and talking about, um, you know, getting healing at the unconscious mind at the root, at the, healing at the root cause, and really getting into, the various inner workings of how the unconscious mind stores language and stores memories and stores emotions and represses emotions and represses it in the body and represses it until it's ready to be resolved. And this month my plan was to come on and deepen the conversations um, on the unconscious mind, and talk about the principles of interaction, the principles of communication, um, where the unconscious mind is concerned. And I had a rough time this weekend because the thing that I anticipated talking about, had planned to talk about, was some of the various assumptions that we live by in the conscious world, and how, when we shift those assumptions from an unconscious level, how that can impact the way we interact in our relationships, in our families, and even in our society. Because transformation really happens on the unconscious level. A lot of what's going on, the systemic racism, the all of this is happening, is because at an unconscious level, on an unconscious level, people learn to be a certain way. They learn to think a certain way. And one of the things that I had planned to talk about today was respect for another's model of the world. And truth be told, I have a very hard time even scripting about that. Scripting, thinking about what was I going to talk about? Like, how can I talk about having respect for another's model of the world when there's a whole culture of people, a whole race of people whose model of the world has not been respected for, you know, decades, centuries. And how is it that I come and talk to you all about, we transform things by respecting one's model of the world. We transform communication by respecting another's model of the world, when the people who are leading our country, it's very difficult to respect their model of the world. And our model of the world has not been respected for such a long time. And so as I, thought about that over the weekend, I thought, well, how am I going to talk about this? How am I going to um, bring this word in a way that is truth, but is also leaves people in a space with something, somewhere to go, or something to do, or somewhere to be, some way to be that's more empowering than the way we are right now. It was a very, very emotional weekend for me, and um, it still is. It still is. Like, emotions have not died down for me, and for the people who are reaching out to me. But when we think about, you know, models of the world and the way we see things and the way other people see things, this is where power is, and the systemic structure is set up to only respect one model of the world. And that's the reason why there's such the breakdown today, is because their system is set up to respect one model of the world, one person's model of the world, not to respect and honor various models of the world. Now, it doesn't mean you have to agree with another's model of the world. It doesn't mean you have to agree with other people's views. It doesn't mean you have to like them even. But respect is, that is a thing that when you respect one another, when you respect another model, when you respect another culture, it's just like that's the basic that's the basic tenet of humanity, respecting one's world. And so if we I'm just, even in the moment, I'm struggling with the words to even to bring that around. Like, how do we become powerful? Um, how do we become powerful in the space where our model is not being respected? How do we move forward? And how do we have other people see what's really going on? And how do we begin to empower others to respect, to have that respect, to generate that respect for another's model of the world when it's set up in that way? I don't have all the answers to that. I don't know. I don't know the answer. What I do know is that's the breakdown. That is the breakdown. And when we begin to look at how we can shift that, and when everyone's model is looked at and honored and respected rather than automatically discounted or disregarded, then we can begin to at least have conversations where people can hear each other. Because when you can't even respect another one's model of the world, then you can't have conversations where people can actually hear each other. It's interesting. I saw a live video posted. I've been sucked into the vortex of videos this weekend, but I saw this live video posted where, um, you know, uh, our community was peacefully marching, and they happened to march upon a Trump rally. And it was an interesting thing to watch, the way that at first there was a lot of course, you would think antagonism happening, a lot of booing, a lot of yelling, a lot of this and that. But then suddenly this leader of this rally invited um, our community to come up on stage and said something, and I'm paraphrasing, along to the lines of, they're allowed to, even though we may not agree with their view is allowed to be heard, or they have a right to be heard, or something of that nature. And I thought it was an interesting thing to watch, because then this brother spoke, and there were some cheers, and there were some, there were some heckles. But what happened was two opposite sides, like very, very opposite sides, communicated. And while it's not the full answer, it's a progress in that particular arena. And so there's this, in order for progress to be made, there has to be communication, there has to be conversation. In order for, and this is a long game too, by the way. I mean, I one of the things that I was having a conversation with someone about is that, tensions are high, emotions are high, everything is high. But, just like in the past, things get high when things are going on, and then we tend to forget. Things start to look good when Black women are hired as CEOs or presidents, and Black men are hired as CEOs and presidents, and then it makes it look like, oh, diversity inclusion is at an all-time high. Oh, it makes it look like this systemic racism is going away. But that's not the case. We need to remember as we go along and continue. If you play chess is a strategic game. And we need to be, as a community, taking the long view. And so part of that is conversation and listening, and, seeing one's model of the world, so that we can start to get underneath the root cause of that. If we're going to break down the systemicness of all of this, we really can't, it has to happen not only at the conscious level, but at the unconscious level of each individual person. It can start with, parents and how we teach our children, right? It can start with, of course, ourselves and looking at the unconscious conversations that we have and the unconscious views of others' models, right? And so, in speaking about the unconscious mind, in speaking about unconscious transformation leading to conscious transformation, that's really what I wanted to bring, because I feel like at the root of it all is the way people think. It's the way people think. And it's the way people think consciously, but that comes from an unconscious source. Babies weren't born thinking a particular way, they were raised in it. White babies weren't born hating Black people. They were raised in it. And it was inserted at the non-conscious level. And then we talk about epigenetics, and we talk about, the collective consciousness. Genetically, these conversations are being passed down. And genealogically, they're being passed down. So at the unconscious level, we need to be able to be able to be willing to and begin to dismantle the conversations, these racist conversations, these systemic racist conversations on an individual level. And as we begin to do that, then we begin to, shift the narrative, domino by domino, piece by piece. And that's not to say the work that's being done now on a conscious level, that work needs to be done, but simultaneously, it needs to be deeper. It needs to be on an unconscious level. And one of the first places we can begin to look is respecting other people's models of the world and having the models, our model of the world be respected. So that's really what I wanted to share today on the unconscious mind. And I hope it was impactful given the circumstances. I really wanted to make sure that I brought across the importance of not only dismantling this at the unconscious level, but also, honoring the conscious actions that are being taken. So with that, I am going to sign off now. I will leave you with the announcement. We talk about the unconscious mind work, and people might be already asking, well, how can I begin to do that work? How can I begin to look at the unconscious conversations? There's a lot of allies that I talk to, people who, a guy called me from Wellington, New Zealand, messaged me on Facebook and say, hey, let's talk when you have a moment. Have a friend reach out to me and say, how can I, one of my white female friends, how can I get involved? How can I help to dismantle this? There's a lot of unrest worldwide, but particularly in our country. And I feel like that, this is a time to draw a line in the sand around this behavior, around this mentality. And, it's like I said earlier, the pitfall, or the potential pitfall is we have to remember and not let it just be while the tensions are high, but continue this for the long game and the long run. So some of you may be asking, okay, how can I start doing this unconscious mind work? I'm all in. I really want to do this unconscious mind. I want to look at, there might be some white people who are like, yeah, I want to do this unconscious mind work, right? There might be some other non-Black people who will be like, yeah, I want to look. I know there's lots of us who are like, I want to do this unconscious healing, whatever it is. How do you start to do this unconscious mind work? And I'll put a link. We are doing an event. July is a virtual event, July 18th, Mind Remapping and Manifestation. and that is happening online. Me and Dr. Manny St. Victor, who many of you by now, if you follow me, you know that we work together a lot, and we're really going to peel back the layers. We're really going to peel back the layers on what it is that creates these these unconscious conversations. What it is that is the source of those genealogically, and then we're going to begin to peel those back and unlock them right in the workshop itself. This is not a summit. This is not it's not a straight lecture. It's not a webinar. It is a workshop, and we will go to work on the unconscious mind. And it is a teaser. It's a learning for those of you who are interested in neurolinguistic programming, who are interested in hypnosis, who are interested in learning more about how to do this work with others, how to really begin to spread this work and teach this technology to others as an introduction so that you get to experience it for yourself. And then if you want to train in it, we can talk about that some other time. But you can go to bit.ly/virtual transformations. I'll drop it in the comments if you want to take a look at it, if you want to register. Yeah, we're doing this work just as much as anyone. That's my calling, to shift the narrative at the unconscious level. So with that said, I'll sign off. You all, please stay safe out there. Please stay vocal. This is not a time to be silent. Stay vocal, and I will talk to you. I'll be going live again on Thursday. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the unconscious mind and perception and the map in the territory. So stay tuned. You guys have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Namaste.